다시 한번. 아니에요. 이제 됩니까? 예. 다시 한번 방금 소개받았던 김게르만이라고 합니다. 이제 3년 만 말이에요. 처음 오프라인 발표를 시작해야 되는데, 사실은 미리 알려주셨으면은 발표를 한국말을 준비하고 했는데, 근데 저는 여기 알마트에서 가자크 국립도서관에서 이번 국제학술회의가 있으니, 그러면은 대수로는 여기 현지 분들이 아마 참석자라고 생각하면서 발표문도 PPT를 러시아말로 준비를 했는데, 근데 이제 갑자기 한국말로 계속 해야 된다면은 좀 서툴러가지고, 특히 3년 동안 거의 한국말을 쓸 경우가 없었습니다. 그러니까 이렇게 쉬운 영어로 우리 박노자 교수님처럼 하겠습니다. 제가 이번 학술 세미나 발표 주제는 Korean settlement in Russian, Soviet Far East, and in Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic, 1864, 1964. That's 1 century, so 100 years long history. And there are several reasons why 여기요? 어디? Next slide. Next slide is 어디지? 여기요? Yeah. There are several reasons why I decided to present this paper on the conference. First of all, this topic connects the over 75 years long history of Koreans in the Russian Far East, then a special part of the history of Korean diaspora, the deportation from Far East to Central Asia, and then all the time of the Soviet epoch and after the collapse of Soviet Union. This topic about the Korean settlements is one of the blank spaces in the history. Until recently, there are a lot of studies, like general books and special papers, and also PhD theses about the Koreans in, as we call, Korea-in right now. But in the old days, we called ourselves Koryo-saram, and we use also this notion, an ethnonym of Koryo-saram. But as I mentioned, the historical period is 100 years until 1964. Why? Because after 64, actually, the topic of the Korean settlement, or so-called Korean settlements, disappeared. There is no more Korean colhoses or 집단공장, and there are no, urban areas of the compact Korean population. Okay, next. 어디지? Sorry. 제 노트북 아니니까 이제 여기만 오늘 okay. I collected over 30 years long all kinds of sources related to this topic, and I traveled through many cities of the former Soviet Union, started from the Russian Far East and Siberia, like Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, and Tomsk, because in Tomsk was the Far Eastern Archive, based in Irkutsk, Novosibirsk, Krasnoyarsk, in 9 cities of Kazakhstan, in Tashkent, and of course in Moscow. And also next to the archive there are libraries, big libraries, huge libraries and small libraries, yeah. And not just archival documents, of course it is statistical data, all kinds of old photographs. I'm quite sure in this world I have the biggest and the richest photo archive on Korean Arab. On Chido or maps, what a collection of the maps I have from second half of the 19th century until recent days. So that is also big collection of sources, or all articles, small papers in the magazines and newspapers, especially in the Korean newspapers like Sonbon, or in the Far East, or Lenin Kichi, or Koreilbo, or other newspapers published in Uzbekistan, in Russia, even in Ukraine, and so on. Yeah. Of course, very important were also oral stories, because 30 years ago they were alive senior people, the generation which was deported, was born in the Russian Far East and then deported to Kazakhstan, and I met dozens and dozens of people and had a talk about all kinds of, all aspects of this history, yeah? I mean different histories, yeah? And, on this topic, the settlements of Koreans. Yeah. This slide is about the periodization. I made the periods in the history of Korean settlements. We'll skip that, just to save some time. I will talk especially about the Korean settlements in the Russian Far East. It means pre-revolutionary period and then Soviet epoch until the deportation. But this history of the settlements, Korean settlements in Kazakhstan, as well in Uzbekistan or other Soviet republics, it's less studied and less known until today. That's why I mentioned it for Korean settlements in Kazakhstan are crucial, important, several things. First is the dispersion of Korean population through all Kazakhstan. And as you know, the total area of Kazakhstan is 27 times bigger than South Korea and 12 times bigger than Korean Peninsula. Yeah? Second is the localization of Korean deported collective farms or kolkhozes. And then the third aspect is the merging of kolkhozes, that is Korean well-developed with neighboring weak kolkhozes. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons of intensive urbanization of Koreans. From middle of 60s, Korean moved from rural area to cities, namely to big cities. And now Koreans in Kazakhstan made 97% urban population. That means every third Korean is living in Almaty. It is not even the capital of Kazakhstan. Yeah? And recently we don't have any compact area, urban or rural, in Kazakhstan, which can be called as Korea. So. One of the main issues which I wanted to present today, that is a problem with the identification or localization of Korean settlements in the Russian Far East. There are 3 slides. That is one first. So now the fourth and the fifth generation of young Koreans are asking, where is my Koyang? and they don't know the name of the villages where their parents were born in the Russian Far East. And I question why? What is the reason? What is the reason why we don't know where this Korean villages were located even? Yeah, and there are several reasons for this problem. The first one is that all these settlements, and I called it in Russian поселения. And поселение, if you translate it into Korean, it will be like, you know, 큰 마을, 중마을, 작은 마을, 총, 농촌. But in Russian there are dozens of other words which means type of settlements, which kind of settlement they are. And I studied all these kinds of settlements. And one of the biggest, and one of the famous, and one of well-known villages is Благословенная in Russian. Yeah, it is not in the Yeneju, not in maritime region. It's very in the north, Amur River, Благословенная. But many Koreans they call Samali. Samali, they know this village is Samali. Yeah, and there are many other cases when one village has 2 or 3 or 5 different names in Russian, in Korean, in Proto-Chinese also. Yeah, and in the languages of Siberian minorities, ethnic minorities, Sosuminjok. So, and then secondly, in the toponymics of the Far East, now until 1972, when the relationship between Soviet Union and China was so severe, and there was like a battle between China and Soviet troops in the Far East and here in Kazakhstan, and then all old name, Chinese name in the Far, they were changed. 720 geographical, toponymical names in the Far East. In one day, they were changed from the Chinese into Russian. Yeah, and these Chinese names, they are pronounced in Korean art. For example, it's Mongugai, Monguge, yeah, and then these different suffixes which are added to these geographical names. For example, he, like it's a river, yeah, like Ulumhe, Tumuhe, Chituhe, and so forth. Yeah, or go, that's Chapi go, you go, it's another case. And then next problem is that one geographical name in Russian was written in many different kinds. For example, there was a big village, Sidimi, and Sidimi in Russian was written Sedimi, Sidimi, Sidimi, Sodumi, Sedimi, Sidima. It's one village. Who knows it? And so, second, the Korean villages were along the rivers because of agriculture and aggregation, not Russian villages. They were like 10, some big villages were 50 kilometers long. And then was upper Kazakh. In Korean it was like Ha, Jung, and Sang. Yeah, in Korea the same. Or how far was the village divided in the parts from the river, or direction like Nam, or Puk, like south, north, west, or east, and this all reflected in the names of the villages, actually parts of the villages. Yeah? And then another problem was after the revolution, the Bolsheviks changed the name, a lot of names, and there are there were dozens and dozens kolkhozes with the name Lenin or October Revolution, and every town was a streets, for example, yeah, with the same names and so called. and not only revolutionary lexica, but also standard words. For example, rice plantage, it was a number. Rice plantage number 1, rice plantage number 2, 9, and so on. And the last problem was that the Far East administratively was changed. The border of the rayon, districts, yeah, and oblast, krai, and so on, So the name of these administrative units, they were changed also so many times. And you know, this year is the year of the 85th anniversary of the Korean mass deportation forced, forced deportation of Koreans from Far East. And I published the book. And this book, you see the cover of the book is Korean settlements in the Russian and Soviet Far East. So this from 1864, because 1864 was established the first Korean village Hijinhe until the deportation 1937. And finishing my presentation, I have appealed to my colleagues from every Korean universities, which have to all colleagues and scholars which are interested in Korean diasporas, namely Koreans in Central Asia or in CIS, to do a joint project in studies of Korean kolkhozes, because kolkhozes, collective farms or Chiptan Mungjang, they are not only in Kazakhstan but also in Uzbekistan or in other republics, and that is a glorious page in the history of Korea Saram, still undiscovered. Thank you.